we have new Star Wars Skeleton Crew episodes 1 and 2 are here. And so that means for the next 7 weeks, we are breaking it down. Kevin, how good does it feel to have a show again?
It's fun. We kick ideas back and forth in between, trying to figure out what to talk about. It's fun to be back to like new Star Wars, and it's fun because everybody's talking about it.
Right.
It's fun to hear everybody's opinions and everybody's
Yeah.
insights. That's one thing I like about new content is everybody kind of centers around it. So
Yep.
it's fun. I'm glad to be back with the show.
Yeah, it's funny how our cycles go where it's like, oh, the acolyte's over. Let's actually like go talk into some random stuff. And then like a month into random stuff, we're like, give us structure, give us the show back. So that's where we're at. So I'm happy to be back. So the way we do these, if you're new to us doing episodic stuff, you've not missed too much. But if you are new to it, we will talk about our initial thoughts for the show. We'll give it a grade, and then we will go into each episode. We'll hit on some big themes, and then, which there's 2 episodes today. Most weeks we would just hit on one. And then we will kind of say, where do we think this is going? Not officially predictions or nothing, but just logically, where do we think it's going next? So, Kevin, the long-awaited return of the ranking. Let's talk about our initial thoughts. Episode 1. Right. I thought it was a lot of fun. Good start.
Yeah.
The one thing I was thinking, like, as I was thinking about us talking about this, when was the last time there was a Star Wars series where in the first couple episodes, they did not do one stupid thing? It's been a while.
Yeah, they begin with stupid things, don't they? That seems to be the...
This one didn't.
That's true. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, the opening was intense. I don't think I was expecting to, I thought we might ease into the pirate thing. I wasn't expecting to go full on, boarding and murder and pillaging from the first few minutes. So that was
seconds.
Fun. Yeah, first seconds.
Yeah, that was a cool scene, especially like watching how they did it. That was cool. But and then it just kept going from there. It was fun.
Yeah, you get the little tag at the beginning, and then you feel it right at the start where you begin to pan out and you see the debris floating by. You're like, oh, okay, we're not starting easy on this one.
Yep. I loved it. And then you get into episode 2 as well. And pirates aren't necessarily my thing. So I like, don't get me wrong here. So like, I wasn't super into the whole pirate thing, and I probably won't be for the entirety of the show, but I did like Shmi, the droid. And then also, learning about Atten, which we'll talk about later. So I think like first 2 episodes, good world building, had some action in there. You get to know the characters. I think they were super fun. So like, as far as my grades go, I would give the first episode like an 8. I don't know if it's quite an 8.5 or not, just because I don't have anything else to judge it on, right? Like it's the first thing. So you hate to throw it super high. So I would say for sure a safe 8. And then the second episode, to me, I had a little bit harder time with it. It was pretty quick. So I'm like a 7.5.
Very quick.
On the second one. Now, I have Disney Plus with ads, so it was a little bit longer than everybody else. But it was 7.5.
It was only like 25 minutes of actual showtime. It was pretty short, even by Disney show standards. So
it was.
We'll see where they go from there. Yeah, no, I agree. The first episode was great. We've been pretty excited about the show simply because it looked like it was going to be a lot of fun, and I was not disappointed on that front. It was a lot of fun. We'll talk about all the stuff, but like the characters, the story, I really enjoyed the first episode. I'm actually going to give it a 9.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Because to me, I don't think there's anything else I would have wanted from the opening, right? To introduce these characters, to set them off on their adventure. I just thought it was a really solid, well done introduction to the story. Now, I agree with you that 2, it was really short, and it felt really short, and it didn't feel like a lot happened. A lot of the, I guess, the more interest pulling stuff came on the later end of that.
Right.
So I think I would put 2 at like a 7.5. Still fun, still good stuff, but definitely not as good as episode 1 to me.
Right. And don't hear that we're saying a 7.5 is negative. So this is not like if you went and watched our Acolyte ratings or even Ahsoka and stuff, these ratings happen for us, at least for me personally, within a vacuum, right? So for what we have so far in this one show, it is an 8 and then a 7.5 for me.
And it's
then like looking as a whole, it may change.
And it's a true 1 to 10 scale. I think a lot of times people move away from anything less than a 7's terrible. Like, no, we're really going to put 5 and 6 at like, it's watchable. It's okay. Like, it's enjoyable. Yeah. It's not the best, but
we're not going to go below that.
It's a real 1 to 10 scale. So
yeah. So we, I would say overwhelmingly are excited about this show.
Yeah.
I think that's really a safe bet just for initial thoughts, initial grades.
Agreed.
Very positive. And also, if you look like across the board, think your favorite, Star Wars voices out in the internet that are super positive about Star Wars all the time. They're pretty positive about it. They're very positive about it, per the usual. And think about your critical Star Wars voices out there too. They're also really positive about this show. And I think that says a lot considering the times we live in. That hasn't happened since probably Mando season 2. So I think that's awesome. So let's get in. Before we get into episode 1, I just want to say, Kevin, you gave me a few good weeks of my Christmas tree, but now you've put mine to shame with your
I'm sorry.
real one.
I'm sorry. Listen,
Winter Wonderland.
It's you can blame my parents for that. It was always a real tree growing up, so I'm stuck on it. I can't help myself. It's not quite there yet. It's not decorated yet, but we got the lights on it. So
we have a tall, skinny Christmas tree. It's the only thing tall and skinny in our household.
To be fair, I think this is the first time my background has looked even remotely more interesting than yours. You normally put me to shame, so it'll just be for a season, and then it'll be back to
you can keep it up and make it like the Valentine's tree or something. Just decorate it.
It'll be super dead. Yeah.
So it'll be like that skeleton on the ship. So jumping in to episode 1. So the episode 1 title was "This Could Be a Real Adventure," and I think that's an appropriate title, right? It's talking about the show. It's talking about the kids, Wim and Neil, and it was a real adventure, right? Kind of like what you touched on last week a little bit. You talked about like this show is just these kids in this mundane life, and they just want to go do something.
Yeah.
Or at least Wim does. Neil, I mean, what a wholesome character. He's cool with his life.
Neil, man.
Love him. But
I don't think we've seen this type of reaction from the Star Wars community since Baby Yoda, right?
Right.
I think that was the last time everybody freaked, and Neil deserves it. Neil's awesome.
He's better than Grogu.
I would agree. Love Neil.
Him. When you go like we're jumping ahead, but let's just talk about Neil right now. This was unplanned, just like the cutest little character, and like as far as like how he looks, the baby Max Rebo, and then he's got like his little siblings, and they're excited that he's home, and like he's just living that perfect little life, sweet kid. So I really enjoy his character.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, he's very early on introduced as kind of the loyal comic relief.
Yeah.
And in the best way possible. I don't see how by the end of the show he's still not going to remain just everybody's favorite character the way he is now. Yeah. So
no, he is like as perfect as they could have written. And then also the actor that plays him, I should have looked up his name to give him props, but this kid,
I looked at it earlier.
He knows his Star Wars. Yeah. Like they were doing some interviews, and he was talking about like the best Star Wars scene ever is when R2 shoots Luke's saber out.
Yeah,
it's green.
Return of the Jedi.
Like,
I saw that.
Man, most people would just be like, "Oh, a lightsaber fight or whatever." Like that would be me. But no, he's like actually got some depth to this. So
that
kid knows his Star Wars. The character's great. I mean, knock this out of the park. This Neil character. And, so I'll probably end up getting a shirt with him on it.
I mentioned it a little bit last. You guys did your recap show. So
yeah.
If you guys didn't, are y'all doing that every week?
I think so. Oh, you're going to be on it next week if you're free.
Oh, interesting. But yeah, if you guys didn't catch it, Will and Andrea from Padawan Chronicles, right? Yeah. They're doing a recap show right after, so y'all can catch that. But yeah, last night
I paid Kevin to plug this.
Oh, really did. It was a lot of fun. But one of the things that came up was just like, I was really pleasantly surprised with the actors. I mean, you never
Yeah.
know what you're going to get with child
Mhm.
actors. Not to throw any shade at any child actor out there, but they did a great job. Like I felt
They
like they
did.
really sold and nailed the characters the way they were written, and so I
Mhm.
was really surprised, and in a good way, just the quality of character that we're getting from these actors so far. So just a little side note, but
I agree. I think, and I don't have anything negative to say about anyone casting,
yeah,
acting, anything like that.
yeah,
So far,
it's
it's
great.
been so good. So yeah, kudos to John Watts and crew for what they've done so far. So
Yeah,
let's now get into episode 1. So kind of what we were going to do, but this could be a real adventure, and we kind of learn this real adventure. Wim is super interested in the Jedi, which I think is super cool.
yeah,
You got Neil's again, just kind of the companion who's also interested in the Jedi. Right? They have a lightsaber duel
yeah.
there, waiting for the
That's
bus, which is
great.
super cool. But like they're going through this classic coming of age type story where it's like, oh,
Yeah,
the big test is tomorrow. It's going to determine the rest of our lives, like that just
yeah,
classic, big earth shattering life moment. And then it gets interrupted by an adventure. And I
yeah,
think that's just a lot of fun in any, entertainment, but it's fun to see Star Wars hopping in on this.
yeah. I think they did two really good things at the start of the show. One is what you were touching on, like just with the action figures and the lightsaber duel. Like
Yeah.
it really sells. Like this is the real Star Wars galaxy, but it sells what it's like to be a kid and to love Star Wars, right? Like
Yeah,
I think
it
all of us were
does.
like, yeah, been
Yeah.
there. Right? We had the memories
Yeah.
of lightsaber dueling and playing, and they really did a good job with selling that feeling. Um, the other thing I thought they did really well, and it's a lot like kind of the movies they're inspired by, but like as soon as you get introduced to these characters, you immediately know who they are, right? Like we
Mhm.
immediately get that Win is like this. He wants adventure. He's the want to be a hero type of character.
Yeah.
Um, we got Neil who comes in as like the mild kind of not really into it, but along for the ride, comic
Yep.
relief. We got Fern, who's you immediately like, oh, she's the girl from Wealth who wants to be the bad guy, right? Like,
Yep. Yep.
and then her quiet friend who's like a tech genius. Like, I immediately thought back to like
Yeah.
the Goonies, where you go
Right.
through all those characters that it shows at the
Hmm.
beginning, and it just gives you something about each of those characters where you know who they are immediately. Um, I think that was really smart for this type of show
Yeah.
because you don't have to now spend a lot of time building up who these characters are. Like you give us a sense of who they are, and then we get to run off with the story. So I thought they did a really good job of
Yeah.
selling the characters from the get go, so that we feel like we know them, and then we can kind of
Right.
head off on this adventure. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't thought about it that way. Like in all of every Star Wars we've had, it's been a lot of build up to learn who a character actually
Yeah,
is. Like
yeah,
it's either a whole movie, it's a season, and I'm sure like throughout the course of this season we'll learn more, but
sure.
it feels like you've known these characters forever.
Yeah,
Just having watched, 50 something minutes or whatever, an hour of TV with them. So
yeah.
I think that's
Which is
really
it's a
cool.
commendable thing to put into writing. Like it's easy for us as an audience to be able to
Yeah,
feel that, but that's hard to pull off. So
I
kudos
agree.
to them.
I agree. Now, also in this first episode, a couple things here. So one, you kind of said it. We jump right into the pirates. So
Yeah,
we get this idea that it's gonna be centered around pirates. Obviously, we've known that. Like, but actually seeing it on screen, that was a neat thing. If you're really into pirates, if you're not into pirates like me, I thought it was super neat too. But how crazy is it that we learned who Jod was like 45 seconds into the
man,
show?
that was wild.
We
Like
think we have. I mean, it could not be
yeah,
him, but it's got to
yeah,
be him, right?
it sure feels like it. Like as soon as he
Yeah,
comes on screen and as soon as he starts talking, like
yeah,
Brittany and I looked at each other like that's Jude Law. Like
that's
that's
him. Yeah,
that's him.
yeah,
And so that is interesting, and I'm not sure what the plan is with this to just because it's got to be intentional, right? Because you got to know people are going to know right off the bat, and so um, talk about maybe that a little bit more when we hit episode 2. But I did think that was an interesting choice to immediately off the bat be like, hey, this guy you've been wondering about, so mysterious, yeah, he's
yeah.
right here. He's a pirate. So
I love it. Don't
it was
you?
interesting. Yeah. No, yeah, because now I don't know what to think. Like, it kind of put me off guard in terms of like, is it that simple? Like, is his character just going to be this pirate guy? And so now, I mean, it does kind of put you on edge in terms of you don't really know to trust whether that's accurate or not because it was so laid out in plain sight.
Yeah.
So it was smart, I think.
I love it. Like, the more I think about it, I mean, I have nothing to think about the show going forward. Like, I don't know what they're doing. You know, it's like, oh, who is he? Well, now it's like, oh, well, we know he's a pirate, but he's also force sensitive. So yeah, it's like, what a way to go about this. It shows us that what we were hyper focused on one thing, and the show's probably going another way, and that's
true.
That can be a really good thing.
Agreed. Yeah, and I'm curious as how much time we're going to spend with the pirates when they're not chasing the kids, or if that's pretty much going to be their screen time. I'd be curious
that's the majority of it.
It probably will be. It's an interesting group. We got Steve Urkel, and
Urkel was in there.
The wolf guy's pretty cool. I like him
from Thriller.
Shistavanen or something.
Careful on that one. Yeah.
They have kind of a weird species name.
Yeah. So. And also, what's his name? Vane from Mando.
Yeah, he pops up.
He's back.
Yeah, very quickly, and then it seems not relevant anymore. But.
Right. I think I'll be interested to see. I mean, this timeline is after Mando season 3. We think. Mm-hmm. I would assume because he's not with he's moved on to another crew.
Yeah, it's got to be.
It'll be kind of interesting to see if we get anything on him, or if they're just kind of this is how they bridge the gap between what we know and kind of put it in the same world. But if we get a little more on him and kind of that world, that would be kind of interesting too.
Yeah, because he could be a bridge piece. You're right, depending on how relevant he is to the story. I guess we'll see.
So episode 1, I guess the next big thing to talk about is the fact that they found this Jedi temple, Jedi temple, they think, and they get in there, and you've got obviously that's an old ship, because nothing. We'll talk about this in a little bit, but nothing leaves this place.
And,
so this ship's
to be
been
clear,
there for a while.
We're not skipping talking about the planet. We're gonna wrap back around to that because I know it's featured pretty heavily in episode 1 too, but we'll circle back around to that. But that ship's been there a long time. I mean, I am so fascinated as to what the time frame that we're looking at is, because for it to be completely covered, large trees growing on top of it, roots growing down into the ship, that thing's been there a long time. We're not talking just back when the Empire started. We're talking well before that. So I am curious as to where they're going with this time frame. I don't know.
I think it's going to be the big lore piece for this show.
Yeah, they're building something up there. I think it's pretty clear.
And I don't think we were sure that this show would have much lore at all.
Yeah,
and so
we don't know.
Throwing in some interesting
lots of Easter eggs
stuff
so far.
Yeah,
a lot of Easter eggs.
Sure.
I love the fact that the driving force is a power converter, right? As soon as they're talking about a power converter, I'm like, oh man, this is great. Yeah. The power of the power converter to drive a plot along. So I mean, that was cool. There were lots of little things like that. Somebody said something.
It was a reference to Harrison Ford's character in American Graffiti.
Oh, was there? I didn't see that.
Yeah, talking about racing when she's who cares about racing, whatever, and it's a play on Harrison Ford's character's name.
That's cool.
Little Easter egg. There's one for Rebels where it's these temples could sink in on themselves and stuff like that. So
Lothal Temple. Yeah, I can't. Somebody said something. I was like, oh man, that's straight from Star Wars. I can't remember what it was now though. But lots of cool little things. I loved when they turned the ship on, just that sense of awe and discovery
when the lights
as everything powers up one by one. I mean, that's like a kid's dream, right? Mm-hmm. I thought that was a really cool scene as Neil continues to hang through the.
It's how did y'all get
crawl
down there?
space?
Gosh, such good writing for this. Just hitting all those tones and feels. Okay, I guess one more thing for episode 1, and it'll carry over into episode 2. But the fact that this little planet they're on at Aten, pretty well off. You know, the dad's just like throwing him some old Republic credits, like, hey, here's your lunch money. You know, I'm going to be busy, but you've got like this very I don't want to say like Americanish society, but you've got like this going to work, coming home, neighborhood, you know, paved roads, school buses, all that. Like this, it seems like a peaceful place, kind of got things going for it, wealthy, all those things. And that's not really where we're usually at in Star Wars. You know, it's like every time we turn around, we're on essentially a Tatooine of sorts.
I mean,
there's not much going on.
How many stable, normal places do we show up at in Star Wars, right? Which we're finding out
Alderaan,
may not,
except it gets
place may not be as boring as we. Yeah, Alderaan doesn't make it too long. It gets quite dramatic pretty quickly. But yeah, so it they did a good job of lulling you into thinking this place is nothing. That it's just that it is the boring part of the story, and now we're going to find out that maybe it's not. So. That was pretty well written.
As we see when we end episode 1, they break through the barrier. They have no clue what space is. Like, they don't know what stars are.
And the fact they've never seen stars, right? That's interesting that apparently this barrier obscures their view of even the night sky. So that's crazy. It's interesting what this barrier is there for and how it works. So
and so they get gone, and we head off. They jump into hyperspace, which was a great scene, and then we hit episode 2, which was way out past the barrier. So I think now is probably a good time to talk about the barrier. Like, how crazy is it that this thing, and in this episode, I guess we'll run down the episode. They get out, and Smee the droid, I guess, gets them to this pirate planet, right? Like, so
Smee's another high point.
Yeah. What's the Fern? She's the captain now, right? So they end up on this little pirate outpost, and you know, it's kind of comical how they're making their way through the pirate outpost. Like, they're, you know, obviously not supposed to be there, and people with good or bad intentions are very aware of it. And so they're in trouble everywhere they turn, and it gets to the point where like they realize, they mention AT-AT a few different times, and everyone's kind of laughing at them. They've got these old Republic credits, and they're like mint condition, and everyone's just kind of trying to figure out what the heck is going on. You learn the planet was a myth. And so I just think that is very interesting, like mythological. What is this place?
Yeah, and it's interesting because this, you know, it's interesting for Wynn because he's been looking for adventure, and as soon as he leaves, he finds out like it's his home planet, which is kind of funny.
Planet is
There's
the
some
adventure.
Definite irony there. But no, the pirate station's interesting. This is the sequence I didn't like as much because it splits up the characters, which I think is really where they're shining the most, is when they're together. We have that weird little creature who's the ferryman who brings them across. One thing I'm really curious about though is where the ship, and I don't know if we'll find. Hopefully we'll get this, but where the ship was going when they dropped it out of hyperspace, because it was autopilot to somewhere. And I'm curious if we ever circle back around to where this ship was going before they dropped it out of hyperspace. And if that's going to be something important down the road. So, I don't know.
I didn't even think about that because I got so sucked into the story.
Yeah. Maybe that's where they head next, right? Maybe they hop on and they're like, we don't know where to go, so let's just go where the ship was taking us. But I did think that was interesting. Yeah,
for sure. And like, so for this planet, right? This mysterious planet that's reclusive, it's unknown, it's just a fable or stories to these pirates, probably to everyone else. Means they've flown under the radar from the Empire. Kind of like what you said with how long the ship has been there. Probably flew under the radar from the Galactic Republic that we know. Was it even gone during the High Republic? Like, how long?
That's a good question.
Has this been there? It's for sure Old Republic times, right? Because they've got the credits and things like that. but like how long does something have to be gone in this
to become a
universe
legend?
to become a legend?
It's a
It's
good
got to be a
question.
while.
Yeah. And the only reference back on Adatin when the undersecretary, she's
Yeah.
talking about their jobs and everything. She just in passing says like to serve the Republic. And as you're sitting there thinking, you're like, oh, it's the New Republic. And then later you're like, oh, not the New Republic, right?
The
What so yeah, it definitely becomes a lot more interesting at the end of the show. Unfortunately, it was a pretty short episode, but
right.
but we do at least get to see Smee beat up some pirates, which is pretty fun.
We do, yeah. That was a high spot. So, like, what do you think though, like about this planet? Like, do you think it's gonna be like some key to like? So I think of Jedi Fallen Order, right? Like, or not Fallen Order, Survivor, where you're like going to this other planet that you got to go through that pathway or whatever to get to, and it'll be like a hideaway for the Jedi. Is this that type of thing?
It could. I mean, because that's the thing. We don't know where Adatin is, right? Yep. Like, you start off the show, you're thinking, oh, this is probably someplace, maybe on like the outer rim, or maybe like just one of the outer core planets or something. Pretty stable. Yeah. Seems like maybe the New Republic has a presence there. But then all of a sudden you realize this place is incredibly isolated. So, like, is this planet just out in some uncharted place that nobody knows it's even there? Like, it kind of seems like maybe that may be more the case than it's floating around places that people have charted out and know. So maybe they started out in wild space. Like, maybe they're out there in the midst of who knows what. But yeah, that planet's hidden for a reason. You don't hide a planet just because it makes you feel safe. Like, that's a pretty big undertaking. I feel like there's a reason you hide a whole planet. And the whole pirate ship thing, right? Like, we've pretty much established that ship was a pirate ship. So when did it crash on that planet? And why has it apparently not upended whatever's been going on the planet? Like, nobody talks about it. Nobody seems to know it was there. So, and there's a lot of mystery now suddenly surrounding this Adatin, and I love it.
Well, and why was the pirate ship going to that planet? Was it a crash land? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's something there. There's got to be something there.
And I could be wrong. I tried to go back and look at the classroom, but there's only 5 species on that planet. That's it.
Oh, you've got deep on it, huh?
I did. I'm curious. There's humans. There's whatever Neil is. There's Ithorians.
The Mon Cal, what the guys that not Mon
Yeah, the Ithorians.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
there's a Rhodian, and then whatever that girl is that Neil has a crush on. I'm not familiar with her species.
The fuzzy creature.
There's a few of those, and that's it.
Yeah.
And did you see that really interesting mural in Fern's house?
So I actually like paused and looked at that for a little bit. What did you think of it?
It looks super important. I don't know what it is or who it is, but it looks like people kind of with this. I don't know if it's like the barrier supposed to be above them or something, but
it looked like a religious type poster thing.
It did, or some sort of historical homage to something. So I don't know. Like, I'm kind of wondering if all of these people came from the crash ship, like if they were captives on the ship and they just kind of made it. But it doesn't explain the security droids. Maybe they just made their own planet here. I don't know. There's a lot of mystery here as to why. Because Neil later is like, oh, there's a bunch of aliens here, right? Like, they've never seen anything outside of what's on their planet, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So this planet has me suddenly very fascinated.
I love that. Like, what if they were from that ship, and that's how they have all those credits and money? Like, it was all like looted.
Maybe it was looted. Another thought I had was like, if this was like a republic, like Vault World, like where they and they kept it hidden away. It's like where they kept all their wealth, and then it just kind of became lost in time. I don't know.
That's so interesting.
You hide a planet for a reason, right?
Yeah. So. That's something for sure we're gonna learn, because they've dropped. They dropped so many things in the first 2 episodes about it.
Yeah.
Now, the pirate ship in episode 1, was it an Old Republic credit, that singular credit when they went to the vault? Was that what that was?
That was a New Republic credit.
New Republic credit,
because it had the little the Republic
symbol, Okay.
symbol on it. Yeah.
So I was gonna have to go back and watch that and see, like, man, if that's a clue to something, like, oh, it
Yeah.
was only one Old Republic credit. But okay, never mind, scratch that.
Yeah, that was a
So
Republic credit because I thought the same thing at the time.
yeah. So
But
back to the rest of this episode. There's not a lot to it until
nope.
like the very end, right? Like
To catch
Smee,
him.
yeah, Smee breaks them out of their trouble, like protects his captain. That was
Yep.
super like K2 looking to me, and I
It
love
was.
K2,
Yeah.
so that's
It's a good
fun.
homage to K2.
Yeah, and so they end up they end up in the brig, and they run in to Jod, and so and that's the second time we think we've seen him, and he breaks him out, uses the Force, pretty cool. Which, I mean, we knew that was coming from the trailers and such, wasn't a big surprise there, but that's kind of the big reveal now. They're with Jod. They're gonna be on their way. And he has him a crew again. If we believe that he's the pirate, he's got his own little crew again, or he's part of Fern's crew, I guess, since she's the captain.
Yeah. And this is this is a tried and true method to create tension, right? Dramatic irony. Tell the audience something that your characters don't know. And even to the extent, I love that they play the Force theme right there.
Yeah.
Because from the kid's perspective, like, this is a hero. Like, this is like the legends coming to life. But for the viewers, we're like, not so sure about this guy right now. And so his introduction is really cool because he's in the shadows. He's obscured significantly. But to them, all they know is that he's got to be a Jedi, right? Because that's their only perspective for what the Force could be and what's happening in front of them. And one of the things I thought about is, at the beginning we get that mutiny with what's his name, Captain. We assume it's Jod, Captain Slivo, something. If he can use the Force, like, we don't necessarily know that he got taken out. Like, they kind of start to fight him and then it cuts to black. Like, for all we know, he like took him out and stayed the captain. Like, he could still be the captain. He's like, hey, I'm going to go hang out in this cell and I'm going to get these kids to take me with them. Right. Like,
oh, that's
who knows? There's lots of places this could go now with his character. But yeah, I think but it seems your prediction was a little more on the spot than mine. I thought he might actually be a genuinely good guy. Doesn't seem to be the case.
Don't
after he punched a guy and threw him out an airlock in the
throw
first
him out
few
the
minutes.
airlock. That was pretty brutal. I love too when they're in the jail cell in the brig, and Neil's like gonna send that little like ferret thing to go
the rat
get the
that lives
key
in Smee's eye. I love that thing.
and he
That's
just
hilarious.
like gets to it, and it was almost like in one of the Guardians movies where like Groot is going back and forth to get the thing.
They're like, no, right there. Yeah.
The other one, and then he keeps going, and then
funny.
also when Neil says like the dirt is really dirty.
That's a great line. That may go down as one of the best lines in Star Wars. The dirt is really dirty. It's just the delivery of it. It's
like
great.
A Princess Bride line.
It is. Thing. Yeah, definitely. Where we go with Jod's character now is way up in the air. We kind of had some predictions on where we thought it might go, but like you and I were talking today, like now that we kind of have this pirate story and this treasure story, like where in the world does Sith runes play into that, right? Like, because we had talked about that, because we saw those on the wall, and like there's a lot of pieces now that I'm like, how do they fit in to this puzzle here?
Well,
this is a place I like being. I like not knowing where this is going.
Well, I was going to say, if it plays into your, like, just get back on the hyperspace coordinates, like, this pirate ship may have been up to, like, a lot of no good. Like, what if it's on this hunt for Sith stuff or Jedi stuff or whatever it may be from a long time ago? Like, that's an interesting thought. What if it's commissioned by a Sith? And so now they're like, it's trying to get to this Sith temple or the Sith rune or whatever. So maybe they end up on an adventure that they're not even looking for. Like it turns into one of those, which would be that would play right into a lot of stereotypes for these shows. And so I think that would be a lot of fun. I think just as far as where the show's going, kind of like, I think that's kind of where we're transitioning to. Where is this show going? We don't know. one. Like we're completely shooting blind from here.
Yeah.
But there's gonna be the theme of how are they gonna get home? We're gonna have to learn more about their home world.
Yeah.
And then if they do make it home and like people are chasing them, it seems that people might figure out about this world, which they don't want to be figured out about.
Yeah.
But also like the dad and the woman that's in charge of the planet or almost in charge of the school, whatever it is. She is going to get involved in this as well. We know it from the trailer. So like, are they going to get off world as well? Like, are they going to break the rules and get off world? So I think that could be like our story points there of the parents trying to get to them. They're trying to get to the parents. Eventually, we're going to get the New Republic X-Wings involved. And then also you've got like this Jod story kind of like wedged in with all of it. And I have no clue where we go next week. Like you assume they're just going to pick up on the next leg of the adventure.
Yeah.
But
no, I'm curious, does anybody on the planet know what's going on? Or is it
person?
Because I mean, even if no one does, and the droids just kind of run this thing because they're programmed to, and literally no one on this planet knows anything beyond what the program is.
It was my assumption that there's one person in charge that knows, right? Like, I don't know if it's is she understudy or whatever she's called?
Yeah, if she is aware of what's going on, or if she's just doing her job, right? Get people in the program, give them a job.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see.
One of the things you and I talked about today that's going to happen is these kids are going to have to learn about everything that's happened that they have no idea. And like the sad part of like when Wynn has to find out the Jedi were wiped out. Like, I mean, that's like his icon, his thing, the thing that he hangs his hat on, and then to learn that they're gone. With the exception of, I guess Luke Skywalker makes a pretty good story, but they'll have to learn about everything that's transpired while they've been in the dark, on this hidden planet, which would be interesting for them.
All these wars and republics falling. Yeah, that's pretty rough. So, what if he gets to meet like Luke or Ezra by the end of this series?
Oh man, yeah, you mentioned that to me today. You brought that up today. I think that's perfect, right? Because
I think Ezra would be a good one for them to meet.
Because if Wynn becomes so disillusioned with Jod and like the failure of who he thinks the Jedi are supposed to be, but then he gets to meet one at the end, that would be a really good plot point in for his character. I think that would be really cool. So hopefully they got your memo and we'll do that.
When Ezra meeting him would just be so perfect too, because like one, just coming from Lothal, like he is that story of the whole wanting the bigger thing, right?
That's true.
Luke Skywalker's the same thing on Tatooine, but even Ezra like being out in a completely different planet, right? Like no contact with everything around. I mean, Ezra would be the perfect and just kind of fun-loving, all the right vibes that these kids would like. I think those
agreed.
That meetup would be very cool. So that's kind of like on my wish list now. Is if they tie it into the Ahsoka Mando story, that they meet up with Ezra, and then maybe if Neil and Grogu have a scene together at some point, I'm all for that. Like maybe not even in this show, but just in the future,
Yeah, we got to pair them up somehow.
Too much awesomeness in one scene if they do that.
Oh man, that's funny.
So, anything else you got for these 2 episodes?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I think in the brief kind of projection, we know where this is going. We're gonna have a breakout. We're gonna have an escape, and they're gonna be heading off somewhere because they're trying to figure out how to get home, right?
Yep.
Which is an interesting situation.
On this next episode,
no, because the kids have no idea how to get there,
and
apparently no one else in the galaxy does either. So, I mean, it kind of seems like they might not have any choice but just to follow where the ship takes them, because where else do you go? So.
How exciting to have Star Wars where we don't have a clue what's coming next. That is
I love it.
The best thing. And it's like optimistically, we don't know what's going on.
This felt very much like Star Wars. It had a really good vibe to it. Some of the best Star Wars, I think, at times figures out how to push good characters, tell an interesting story, but also not take itself super seriously. And I feel like this show has just nailed that balance, right?
Yeah,
I'm
it has.
interested in these kids. I'm interested in this story. But at the same time, I love that I can just laugh at this show the entire time I'm watching it
Yeah,
because these kids are hilarious and Neil is hilarious and I love Smee. It's found a really good balance in these first 2 episodes of just hitting on all those notes that make me feel like Star Wars, right? Like compelling characters, making me laugh. Where is the story going? All of that stuff, to me is
yeah.
very Star Wars. So
There's no
I like
stress
it.
to this. It's just a lot of
No,
fun. We're
yeah,
not having to worry like, oh my gosh, what is the acolyte gonna do next? Like, can they, just act normal type of thing? We don't have to worry about like, oh my gosh, is Jack Black and Lizzo? You know what I mean? Like, there's none of that. Or is Reva gonna kill like the Grand
yeah,
Inquisitor again? Like, are we gonna retcon whatever? What? Like, there's no worries in the world on
yeah.
any of this, and that's not really what we've seen since the first couple of seasons of Mando and Andor. Everything else, you're always kind of like on your edge, like, oh, when's the other foot going to drop? I
Yeah, a
don't
little
think
bit.
that's happening here, which is fun.
Yeah, yeah, agreed.
A lot of fun.
I am. You and I were pretty hyped up about this.
Yeah,
And I don't feel any less excited about it after the first 2 episodes. So I'm on
very true.
board. I'm ready for next week, and I'm excited about where it's going to go.
We are still in the fun zone. So,
Yes, for sure.
guys, gals, whoever's watching this, let us know what you thought about episodes 1 and 2. Drop that in the comments. Let us know where you think it's going, and we'll do the same thing next week. Don't forget to tune in to the Padawan party with the recap
I
show
love
on
the
Tuesday
name.
night with Padawan Chronicles and myself. Maybe Kevin if he's available. We'll see. And we will catch you guys next time.